You found the skeleton. How would you tell if it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, good morning, evening, afternoon, night, whatever it is where you are. I am here, of course, with my guests TD Lane, Jackson Wheat, Dan, and Walker. And I actually, before we get started, I want to say one quick thing, which is somehow I had $5 in chat revenue before the stream started, but I don't have a super chat in my log of super chats. So if you super chatted $5 from like I don't know, like this morning or something, my sincerest apologies. I have no way to retrieve it because I can't scroll up far enough in the chat because it cuts off after a while, and I don't have it in the log of super chats. So whoever you are, mystery person who sent me $5, thank you. I'm sorry I can't read your message. However, that is not really what we're here for. We are here to rank the final, I think, 8 creationists from YouTube. We did 9 last time. We're going to do 8 this time. But first, we want to introduce the panel. Gutsa Gibbon should be here with us shortly. And yeah, so TD Lane, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sorry, my mic did not unmute. I'm TD Lane. Go refer to the previous stream to see my intro.
There you go. Jackson?
I do science on my channel. Check it out.
Nice. Dan?
Hi, I'm Dan. My channel is Creation Myths. I was not here last time. I was supposed to be, but I couldn't be. I apologize to everybody, but I'm happy to be here for part 2. I also do science on my channel, but it's really bad creationist science.
Nice. And Walker?
Hi, my name is Walker. I also do science on my channel, but unlike the other two, my niche is that it comes around once every 6 months.
There you go. Well, I have a channel that...
I'm working on that.
Look, I have a channel that I jointly own with a few other people, and it posts roughly once a year. So don't worry about it too much. Alright, so this, of course, is our board. So we have from S, then we get into the letter grades, A, B, C, D, and F. And then we have Grethor, which is the worst of the worst. The absolute bottom of the barrel trash. In which case, of course, we have Nathan Thompson, Raw Matt, and Matt Powell. Both the Matts get down there. What is it with Matts? There's a thing. If you're named Matt and you're a creationist, maybe you're just extra terrible. I don't know. It's for like the Flat Earth Nathans, because there's 2. There's Nathan Oakley and then Nathan Thompson. And they're both just absolutely the absolute worst of the worst. They're terrible. It's Matt's for creationism. Anyway, so we still have a few left, and there is one thing. Some of you may or may not know that our last person on this list is Mr. Batman, and he was supposed to have a debate with Erica. Unfortunately, that is not going to be happening because he had a family tragedy, and without getting into it too much, I just want to say that none of us are going to be holding that against him, and I think we all agree that it's pretty terrible, and our thoughts go out to Mr. Batman in a pretty crappy time in his life. So, yeah. He's definitely not my favorite person on this list. However, anyone who has a situation like that, it's never fun, and I never want to be the guy who celebrates anything like that. Unlike someone on our list here. So, yeah,
Yikes.
Exactly. Anyway, I don't think there's any reason to stand further on ceremony except to just go over quickly. We rate our creationists on the level of their argumentation, how good their arguments are. Then on their engagement, and then on their cringiness. And there you go. That is how we do it. And we take a little poll of the panel members here, and we place them on the list. So first up, we have Finding Truth, someone who has debated me and Jackson, and I don't think anyone else here. I don't think he's debated Erica either, has he? No, okay. So, Finding Truth also has the interesting distinction of being the only non-Christian creationist here. Finding Truth has a Islamic apologetics channel, so there you go. Now, I guess I'll start off. When it comes to the level of his arguments, he does tend to crib off of a lot of like ID stuff and some bits of Christian anti-evolution stuff. But he's also not Young Earth, which is nice because you don't have to deal with any of that stupidness. And his arguments aren't. I mean, they're not the worst that's on here. Like, we don't have G-Man with the just intentional misrepresentation of what you just said a few seconds ago, or like Nathan Thompson, which is just things that don't even make sense. Oh, and Erica is here.
I'm here, but I am late. Sorry about
Only a
that.
little bit. We already started with Finding Truth, and I said that his arguments aren't the worst. It's because, you know, he's mostly just cribbing smarter people, but he's not as bad at arguments, say, as Nephi is.
Yeah, I don't know Finding Truth well enough to comment. You guys picked a good one to start with. I just don't know Finding Truth well enough. All I've seen is his interactions with you and Jackson, and he seems fine enough.
Yeah, I've watched a few of his videos on his channel. I think Jackson has too.
Yeah, the arguments on his videos are interesting in that he has like no specifics. When I first watched his videos, because I was originally going to do a response to one of them, I watched the whole thing, and there were like no specifics, not a single actual like data point that he was bringing in favor of his argument.
He does do that fog bank thing.
It was bizarre.
Yeah, it's on the other hand though, by being vague, at least he's not as mind-numbingly wrong as like, say, I don't know, Mr. Egg down here in F tier.
So, basically, it's just bog standard ID.
Yeah, basically. But
yeah.
I will say that watching him with... So I did not know Finding Truth well, but I haven't interacted with him except very briefly in the after show for Dapper, either your thing with him or Jackson's, one of those, very briefly in the after show. And aside from the quality of the arguments, which I think you all are exactly right on, it's pretty much down the middle ID kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he was very pleasant to interact with, like absolutely, no problems with talking over people, interrupting, any, name calling, anything like that, which is, in my book, puts you up fairly high on this list.
I agree, and I think that actually touches on all three of our categories, except maybe argumentation, but like engagement and cringe. He's actually the only Muslim apologist who does anti-evolution stuff that I think I can even stand to watch for 10 minutes because they're all just so boring, and he's not as boring. He's personable. Like I've said, like he and I we have a Facebook message. He actually has my personal Facebook, and like when we're messaging, we're doing things like talking about like coffee or things like that. Like we actually have like regular old just hanging out conversations. So I have trouble imagining me having those conversations with most of the people on this list, both past and present.
It's funny that it's funny to point that out because like I tend to not think of people who I know online and don't interact with frequently as having like lives outside of the stuff that they do online.
Right.
So, and I actually have something to say about Otangelo with regard to that because I found something out about Otangelo the other day that I made him very charming to me. I was like, oh, that's adorable. I really like that. So that's going to be a non-cringe point for Otangelo when we get there.
Okay.
But,
all right.
Well, so for engagement, because I think we've already covered cringe. Like there really isn't much that's cringy that I've seen, or any of us really.
Yeah.
For engagement, he's fairly new to actually doing online debates, but he's been pretty active in seeking them out. He's requested my moderation twice. The second time the debate ended up not happening, but I mean, he's actually been like, hey, Dapper, can you moderate the debate with Jackson, as well as he wanted to try and get a debate with Aaron Ra that he wanted me to moderate. So I'm going to have to say, for the length of time he's been active, he's been quite active. And he is going to be taking a hiatus for Ramadan, which is coming up in like a week or so. But then after that, he's planning on lining up a bunch more debates. So I'm going to say that we're giving him a really good engagement score.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm actually okay
So
with... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, so I'm hearing like A or B, basically.
I'm willing to put him in A. The only thing that would push me lower is that the arguments aren't amazing, but I mean, zero cringe, some positive points for, actual just personability and, anyone...
Well, points for his argumentation. He's also an older person.
Yeah, that automatically gets you some points.
That's, yeah.
There's nothing I love more than seeing the OECs out and about. Because this as a side note, OECs are theistic evolutionists just needing a little nudge in the right direction.
that's often true. Yeah. So I'm okay with A. Does anyone have any strong arguments against A?
I'm chill with it.
I don't know him well enough, so I kind of defer to you guys on this.
All right. Well, here he
A
is
sounds right to me, yeah.
in A tier. So congratulations, Finding Truth. You have the coveted A spot. I have a sneaking suspicion he will be alone in the A tier.
I think we may have locked down our gold and silver medalists at this point.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we have the man who thought he could make fun of me about my alleged homosexuality by making up and singing an even gayer version of In the Navy. Faithful, honest, and true.
God, this man. This faithful, honest, and true. I recognize him by a different little avatar. So when I first saw this, I was like, "Who is this? Do I know this person?" And then when you were like, it's Jason," I was like, "Oh, he's on the list. I see."
Yeah. Erica, do you remember our first interaction with him? Because it was on the same stream.
No, I 100% know that interaction. That's still one of my favorite impromptu conversations because of how I felt like before experiencing that I must have accidentally consumed some kind of psychedelic mushroom or like an excess of NyQuil or something, because hearing the man come onto a stream and tell a story about a spiritually gelatinous cube in his hallway was something that I wasn't expecting for that evening.
Yep.
So I mean, by entertainment alone, he's definitely something else. My favorite thing too about our friend that Faithful, Honest, and True is he's woefully unfunny. So from the stuff that you were saying, Dapper, that's a classic. Like his jokes tend to be limited to things that you would have used against other sixth graders when you were growing up in the 80s to the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So you're a woman, you're gay, or you're weak. Those are or any combination of those three things is how this guy gets around with the old insults. So.
Was he the one who did the thumbnail with you in the kitchen with a chef's hat or something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't forget the sexism.
Fun.
Well, so let's go to arguments, because as far as I can tell, Jason just points and laughs as his argumentation style. That's all he's got.
Yeah.
Well, he was also the editor for the first couple
oh my
of
goodness,
SFT
that's
books, right?
True. So we can blame him for the awfulness of the SFT quote unquote books.
The thing is, we know for a fact that there was a falling out between SFT and Faithful, Honest, and True at some point.
Oh, I know some details on that.
Responsible for all of them.
I know some details on that. He was issuing death threats against fellow creationists.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
Imagine being too vitriolic for the Brain Trust.
Yep, I actually got an email from Praise I Am That I Am saying that he was getting death threats from Faithful, Honest, and True. And that is why he ended up having a falling out, if you will, with the Brain Trust, is because they basically said, you can't threaten to kill our friends and hang out.
Yeah, that's not okay. All right, just banish him and let's move on.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Imagine being too vitriolic for the Brain Trust. That's the catchphrase for Faithful.
All right, Grethor is filling up. We've got a lot of new inmates here.
We still have him.
All right, so next we come to Smokey Saint, the man who spends more time insulting Christians than he ever does making arguments about evolution, and the guy who basically kind of makes me think if we ever hung out, I would need a gas mask, because I feel like he's actually just a heavy smoker. But when it comes to argumentation, I don't think he's actually, from what I can tell, he's basically around Nephi tier. He just has...
I would agree with that.
So
it's all biogenesis stuff, yeah.
In my debate with him, he basically agreed with the first argument I made, and I said, well, then we're pretty much done. That's it. That's the whole debate.
Well, he said on his own channel that he's essentially older and leaning intelligent design, but then when you start to get into that conversation, he tends to, like Jackson said, agree with everything you say, kind of against intelligent design. He walks over that and then he's just it's not my wallet conversation, right? Like he'll go through every step of the way and flip at the very end.
Yeah.
All right. So now, when it comes to engagement, I actually don't see him engaging all that much, other than occasionally having somewhat open mic times on his own channel. Like, he's not frequently on, like, Modern Day Debate, or, like, having actual discussions on platforms other than his own, even with other creationists.
I would say that his engagement used to be pretty high, but just due to, like, some events that have happened within the past couple months, he's basically just, like, cut out everything, and he just almost disappeared from online.
Yeah.
There was the creationist on creationist tension that was going on for a while. I don't know how that ever resolved, but after that, I stopped seeing him in places.
That's bringing us into the cringe factor, because one of the interesting things is Smokey has a tendency to be extremely vitriolic, but not as much against people who are, accept science, but primarily against other creationists for their perceived heresy. That is, like, the big axe he's been grinding lately, and he has been alienating a lot of people. And basically, one of his biggest complaints is, you aren't enough of an asshole to evolutionists, therefore I will be asshole to you. And it's like, okay, if you think that's gonna work.
Which is funny because
exactly.
he seemed relatively nice in our conversation. I didn't have any problem with him.
Yeah, he can be cordial. It's just it's
to your
he's always
face.
got these weird triggers that I can't put my finger on. That
Yeah.
What has he called me before? He's called me. I mean, he's called me a bunch of names before. So he gets a really low cringe score from me.
Yeah. He will literally have a really nice conversation with you face to face, and then immediately go on someone else's channel and badmouth you behind his back. Like, that has happened to multiple people here.
I've never watched any of his streams, so I can't,
So basically, what I'm hearing is from the description that's been given, he's basically an Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor.
I honestly, insults for him are like a second language. He's. I would say it's kind of impressive how well he's able to, like, throw out slurs and stuff.
Especially against the LGBT plus community.
LGBT, non-neurotypical, I guess, would be another one. Women in general.
Women in general.
Man, you're getting a pretty small list of people he doesn't want to insult. My
Yeah.
goodness.
No. He's very quick to insult anybody.
Okay.
oh boy.
So my thing is
F.
I think F is reasonable. I don't think Grethor, because, like, we don't have him doing, like, calling for genocide or like celebrating the death of Bill Ludlow. None of those. So I think
Right.
I wouldn't put it past him, though.
Well, do we have any objections to F?
I think F is fine. I think on the scale that we've established of, like, raw Matt to Sal,
Yeah.
near the bottom.
Okay.
I personally have a hard time putting him above Grethor, but if I'm outvoted, so be it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely F.
So
that's my vote.
there we go.
You are just a cynic, Walker. You do that for several people. You're like, no, they should be Grethor.
So
Or yeah.
now we have. Next up, we have the discount James from Modern Day Debate, because of how many debates he's just moderated over there. And of course the guy who emailed me to say, "Oh hey, didn't Faithful, Honest, and True issue veiled death threats against you?" To which I said, "Why, yes, he did." And then he said, "Yeah, he did it to me too." Praise I am that I am.
So praise is one of those odd cases where he truly is a rare breed, because I have seen Praise change his mind on something, which is very uncommon for creationists to do. So for me, that gives him big ups on that point. At the same time, I've also heard him take, like, I think that wishy-washiness also lends itself to, he hears something and then he's like, yeah, I guess that checks out. And that has been reflected in some of, and if Lena is in the chat, she'll know what I'm talking about, with some of his relationship with the numbers related to the Holocaust, something that he's not very keen on believing. So, and I know we're not doing extra creationist, engagement.
I think that's that counts. Honestly, if you are, I mean, look. So I'm kind of I'm quick to lump antis altogether. So if you are like, for example, like I'm not anti-vax, I'm just against this one. It's like, no, that's anti-vax. Like that's what camp you're in. Thank you for clarifying that. And I'm the same way with Holocaust denial. If you are Holocaust denial curious, we can just get rid of the curious and call it what it is. And I think that's worth a 1 to 2 letter penalty on top of whatever score you would otherwise receive.
Well, what about?
And I agree with Ben.
Right.
We have to
I will
get
say,
through any arguments. What arguments is Praise I Am that I Am throwing out there that are either just decent, terrible? What are we getting out of here?
I haven't heard him talk
Can't
about
comment.
evolution too much. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I remember him saying that he is old Earth and he supports a localized flood, which are both points in his favor for argumentation. But he also supports electroshock, which is a step up from Matt Powell, to be fair.
Yes,
But
that is
he
not
supports
actual
conversion.
genocide. So, okay,
I don't.
Well, it doesn't support genocide, but also questions that it happened. Like,
Oh,
look, one of those things is worse than the other.
that is fair. But when we're talking about levels of badness associated with genocide, we're really talking about shades of gray here.
Right. I'm just saying it's slightly better than Matt Powell on that, like, genocide scale. So,
Yeah, right. I mean, if you get out of a microscope with good enough resolution, yes.
hey, you know
I
what?
mean,
There is a difference there.
The
Yeah.
thing is, we've got like admits that he's wrong, OEC, local flood, and that's like 2 or 3 points, and then you've got Holocaust denial, and that's like -8, right? Like,
Right, it gets you to a B.
What if we go with this? Okay, when we get to argumentation, we can probably put him somewhere around finding truth, because when it comes to the actual
Yeah.
science stuff, he's actually not far off there. Then we get to engagement, where I would say he's pretty middling, C. And then we get to the cringe factor, which is bringing it down a lot. And I would say that overall, I think it might average out to about a D.
I would go
think-
D tier. I would go D tier
That's
for
fine.
praise.
Okay.
I had repressed it so deep in my gray matter, but I actually debated praise once on human evolution. I'm just remembering that happened, and I remember distinctly that one of Praise's examples as to why humans weren't apes is chimps are really strong and they don't get the same diseases that we do. And I was like,
What?
they get a lot of them. We get a lot of the same diseases. In fact, we share more of a disease profile with them than anything else, and probably more with them than a rat shares with a mouse.
Look, Erica, SIV is a myth. It's a complete myth.
Yeah, and we had to go through the whole why aren't humans hairy? Why did we lose our fur? If fur is so good at keeping us protected.
And my
it's
favorite
like,
thing is chimps aren't that hairy, and humans are in fact just as hairy. They just have thinner hair.
well, I mean, it's like some of these folks have never seen a bonobo. I mean, these guys are sparse on the hair.
Yeah.
Like compare a bonobo to like a gibbon, right? I mean, they look like a very hairy person essentially.
You ever seen everyone's if you search like chimpanzee alopecia, just look at it and it just looks like a guy with a funny face. I mean, honestly, like long arm guy, funny face. That's what you have there.
Well, until they stand up and you see
Well,
the
Right.
like Dharma ratio, the massive testicles, the prognathis, there's some differences there, but you're right. Like if you looked at like a just a bicep of a chip with alopecia, you'd be like, that's a buff dude. Like you would,
I'm in awe at the size of this lad.
yeah, you'd be like, that's a unit. That's a unit.
So I am going to put Praise I Am That I Am right here next to Nephi, unless we have any strong objections that someone wants to argue.
My B, but my vote is F, but I think I'm outvoted.
I mean, it's highly bimodal, right? It's like B/low F.
Yeah, that's the problem.
the
Because
thing is, though, like, he's better than G-Man. Or he's not better than G-Man. He's worse than G-Man. But,
Okay.
So okay,
but better than, like,
again though, here and in the chat, everyone's like, put everyone in F tier, put everyone in Grethor. It's like,
a relative
okay,
scale. It's
we
a
have
relative
to,
scale.
yeah, we have to even it out a little bit. Otherwise, we just have DF and Grethor.
Like,
It's not going to be a Poisson distribution, okay? It's a relative scale.
right,
it's
like,
not Poisson,
like,
yeah,
get-
really.
like, let's be fair. If we were to include like all the pro
It's a negative
science
binomial
channels,
distribution.
if we were to put like all the like say pro science channels on this list, yes, all of these people would be in F or Grethor, but we have to. We're ranking them essentially from John Maddox to Finding Truth is the real thing.
Actually,
and then if you're significantly different on that, then we can put you up to S or down to Grethor.
Can we do that? Can we do that? Can we like rank all of our channels versus like the other major science channels? Can we please do that at one point?
I will let you be in charge of that one, Jackson.
Oh heck no!
Okay then.
Honestly, Jackson. I think that is a great idea, and I think one of these channels should take it upon themselves to reciprocate. I think that would be really fun to watch.
Okay,
I think that would be honestly. I think that would be really fun to watch. I think that would be fun.
I would pick Sal. Yeah. I would pick Sal for that one. I think he'd be fun.
That'd be fun, and he wouldn't just put everyone in like F tier. Like
Sal wouldn't. Yeah, Sal would not.
Because the thing is,
okay, I was going to ask, since we've got 4 people left and we're probably going to get through them at a decent pace, can we at the end have everyone get to move one person if they think they should be moved?
How about this? Everyone can nominate a move, and if they can get 2 votes to agree to that, then we can move some people
in addition to the person.
Yeah, they
2
have
votes in addition to.
Yeah, if you can get half of the panel to agree with you, not a majority, just half.
If you get half, then Kamala Harris will break the tie in your favor.
There you go. That's what's going on here. This is the least well attended Senate session in history.
You just got to get Joe Manchin, and then you can do whatever you want.
That's it.
Just got to get Manchin.
But also, I would also be open to like there's some people from YouTube who we haven't included. And if we have time, we could also do like we could say where would Venom Fang X rank or something like that, right? Because
below Grethor.
Well, maybe.
I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. All right, let's go to Otangelo next.
Next up we have the Frank Oz voice impersonator that Hollywood never knew they needed. Otangelo Grasso.
So I have a very good Otangelo impression. I found that out the other day when I was telling my fiance something Otangelo said.
Now you have to
but
say.
I'm not interested. I'm not interested in doing a funny Otangelo voice because I
okay.
Stones and glass houses on my end.
Do a Kermit the Frog impression.
It could be a little Kermity.
We don't have to.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not into it. I'm not into it. But
argumentation.
So arguments with Otangelo. Otangelo at least has a lot to say. I think he's got a lot to say.
One argument. It's one argument.
But it's a lot of sub arguments, which is more than you can say for like some of the folks.
And he does know a lot about a lot of different systems.
I think it's almost I think it's incorrect to say he has an argument. He has nothing novel. Like, I was reading his blog because he sent that one paper on speciation to me like 5 different times, and I was just checking it. And I Googled a sentence and then realized, this whole post has been lifted from Evolution News.
Oh, hey, Otangelo is here.
It was not a sentence he wrote.
Otangelo is here.
Otangelo is here, yes.
Hi, Otangelo.
I did not write a sentence of it.
Hi, Otangelo. I will say, like, as a person who has very little background in, like, molecular bio and biochem and all that kind of stuff, I feel like he brings up fairly strong origins or bust arguments. And then outside of that, they're really bad. Like, any argument he's ever made against evolution, I felt, has been extremely weak.
It was terrible.
And also, I will say,
he brought lunar recession to the table once.
I think the reason that I do find his molecular bio arguments a little bit like more compelling is because I don't have the background. So he throws out big words, and I'm like, ooh, big words.
Well, and he puts a lot of effort into it. I mean, yes, there's a lot of crud stuff on his blog, but it's a big blog. So, there's some...
But it's like Wikipedia articles. He just copy-pastes, like, Wikipedia articles onto his blog.
The blog also doesn't matter.
That is true.
It's not on YouTube.
So that is true. Yeah. That is true, but I will say this, so my experience with Otangelo, Erica, you can help me out with this one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Otangelo was on Reddit for a while, right?
He was.
That's where I originally met him, was interacting on Reddit. And then we've spoken a bunch of times now on YouTube, including he came on my channel for like an hour-long conversation, and you know what? That was a really good conversation, and like we were able to get into some real like nitty-gritty of not just like how do specific things work, but also like how hypotheses work. And that was a better conversation than you're going to have with most people on this list, I think.
Yeah,
and so
that's
I do think in terms of being able to be I think it is true that most of the stuff on the blog, that if he links in text, it's going to be mostly secondhand stuff. And the arguments are mostly framed around an abiogenesis, origins or bust, or more broadly, an irreducible complexity kind of framework. That being said, you would be hard-pressed, I think Sal maybe, but you would be hard-pressed to find someone who actually can sustain a conversation on nuts and bolts, like Otangelo can.
Yeah, at least if we're doing biochem.
I think that,
Right.
I think that's true, but to what Walker said earlier, too, I mean, the second you get him out of that biochem realm, his ability to reason seems to disintegrate. I mean,
That's fair.
anytime he touches anything geology, anytime he touches anything, macroevolution, quote unquote,
But to be fair to
anything
him,
past like eukaryotic split,
to be fair to him, he's usually not trying to claim expertise in those areas. He usually doesn't dive into those unless someone drags him in there. He has a wheelhouse and he tries to stay in it. And to be honest, I don't think that's a problem because
He wrote a post on speciation, sent it
never
to me,
mind
and then
then.
told me to debate him.
I withdraw.
And then told me to debate him.
I withdraw
So-
my attempts at
Which,
compliments.
by the way, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. We never heard back from James on that, so whatever.
Yeah, I think that. Okay, we did arguments. What's after arguments? Engagement.
Engagement.
That's
Which-
super engagement.
Yeah,
Insane
absolutely.
Engagement.
Yep, I think
Yeah.
He's
that's
on
Tons of
Speech
engagement.
Channel like every day. I'm impressed, honestly.
Tons of engagement, and then cringe.
So there's a few things with cringe. One is, despite Otangelo's habit of simply spamming chats with links to his blog that are essentially just bald links, like there's no explanation, no attempt to tell you how this is
True.
relating to anything. Despite that fact, when he asked me for papers to support some of my assertions in the debate that we'd finished, and I sent them to him the next day with, labeled as, when I was talking about this argument, this is a paper that is supporting me and whatnot, he refused to read them because I didn't explain what they were about. And I only linked like 5 papers. And I'm like, Otangelo, I'm not going to sit here and hold your hand. You wanted to know what papers might support my assertions. These do. I told you which assertions each paper is tied to. I don't know what else you want from me.
My favorite Otangelo kind of cringe moment was one time he was in Speed's chat, and I think it was a cultural thing, which is why I'm hesitant to kind of roast him on it. But I think personally, I think there was enough context that he could have been informed by the situation. But he did call someone a pussy in Speed's chat, which Otangelo was quite funny.
Actually,
and I was like, what?
No, so sorry, finish up, Eric. I thought you'd stopped.
No, I was just like, what? And he was like, I think someone was like, Otangelo, like, why would you? That seems really out of character. And he was like, yeah, well, they're acting soft. So I think he was like equating it to like on someone with or something like that. You're like,
Yeah.
That could be.
So I think it was like a cultural thing.
I always am willing to give people for whom they're not interacting in their native language a bit more of a pass, because
Agreed.
you're always going to
Agreed.
miss some little subtlety.
Yeah.
Like, there was one person I know who just insisted that the words request and demand were essentially identical in English, and I'm like, no, they're not. And it's just like, at a certain point, I'm just like, okay, fine, whatever. Just go with it. I'm not going to hold it against you. You don't speak the language as well as someone who grew up in it. So I'm going to give them a pass on that.
Languages.
But here is
Oh, yeah,
one thing.
right.
Now, here is one thing that actually connects to a little bit like there's like a story of some cringy stuff, which is in Speed's channel. Otangelo once said that I had told him in a private conversation, which, by the way, we haven't had a whole lot of those, that I was an atheist, which no, I hadn't. He did retract it, but then one of my mods here, Cheshire Vic, who's occasionally a guest on the channel, and who may be coming back in a couple weeks, by the way, decided that she would like to know his reasoning for feeling free to essentially out someone with information that, according to him, he'd been given in confidence. And not only did he refuse to answer that on the show that she was running when he popped in, he then went to something like 4 or 5 different alts to spam the same message that he'd sent originally from his main account.
Wow.
And then, when he showed up in my chat, and she asked him the same question, he blocked my moderator. Which, by the way, meant that in 1 week, he went from being a moderator on my channel, to not being a moderator because he was spamming links, to being blocked on the channel for blocking a moderator. In the span of less than a week. Which I think, I mean, is it, like, genocide cringy? No, not even close. But it's pretty cringy. I think that's like...
pretty cringe.
That's like, it's gonna at least be Nephilim Free or G-Man level cringe there.
Mm-hmm.
I think B or C for Otangelo.
Yeah. I would be comfortable saying, like, B.
B is fine.
B,
I think B.
B, alright. Well, I would go C, but if everyone else is going B,
I would go with C also, Dapper.
I'm going with C.
Here's why B.
We're split.
We're split.
Here's why B, if I may. Here's why B.
Okay.
We have Emery, IHI, at B. Now, I think in terms of things like originality is not there. Now, I was not here for last week. I apologize for everyone. I couldn't participate last week, and I'm sorry. But so if we have IHI at B, I think Otangelo's arguments are more. I'll say more sophisticated. I don't want to say better, but I'll say more technical.
Yeah.
And there's also so Emery also brings a lot of, I don't know what the right word is. There's baggage to it. There's the cultural side of things. The evolutionists are trying to brainwash you. That's a paraphrase. It's not really what he says, but like that's the implication behind it. There's the cultural side of things that he really leans on.
Yeah.
And Otangelo, to his credit, leaves all that stuff out and really does, at least it seems, try to focus on the science side of things. Okay. So if we're going to put Emery at a B, I think Otangelo should at least be a B.
All right.
And can I also just say,
I'm going with B.
Okay.
Okay. I personally think Otangelo is actually like a relatively like polite dude. Like I've never had that interaction with Otangelo.
Yes.
He could be frustrating, but not because he's being rude.
You know, I don't know if y'all ever watched this, but I remember he was one of the ones that was being called out by Smokey for being too nice to the evolutionists and stuff.
Yeah.
And during that whole conversation, Smokey was just screaming at him, and Otangelo's sitting there like politely, just, "Did you pray today, brother?" And all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
man.
So
that's rough, man.
Well played.
Yeah, my vote's changed.
Well
to
played.
B.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well done. Well, now, because of an impassioned plea by Dr. Dan, Otangelo, congratulations. You are moved up to B. You are now officially...
I'm going to give a golf clap for that.
There we go. So now we actually have a tie for our bronze medalists. So...
Oh, man.
There you go. We're not subdividing the tiers, by the way, guys. We're not going B+, B- on this one. So,
oh, thank God. We'd be here forever.
I know. All right, so next up, we have the guy who managed to need to rent a friend and then killed him off anyway. A bit of orange.
So can I just say I have never. I had to ask who that was.
I've only seen the
total blind spot. I have never watched any of this. I have never interacted with this person, so I'm going to mute myself and not participate. I have no input.
That's
Dan, you are missing nothing. Nothing at all.
So I know I have a short series dealing with a bit of orange content. Jackson does too. He's had some back and forth with Professor Stick.
Vice Rhino.
And Vice Rhino, yeah, that's right. And Vice Rhino. I don't know if he's been anywhere else, really. You had him on your channel once, I think.
Yeah, I had him on. RJ Neslig and I talked to him, and that was 3 hours of an absolute waste of time.
I remember that. I watched that.
We discussed nothing but the definition of evolution. And
that's
he
one
spent
of his
the whole
main
time,
things.
like, trying to understand that, like, the allele, like, the concept of an allele. We spent the entire time trying to explain that to him. It was ridiculous. 3 hours.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, that's one of his big things, which is getting into arguments. One of his biggest arguments is just, if I misdefine evolution, it becomes silly. Well, I mean, okay, I guess that's technically true.
You're not wrong.
If I may. Yeah, one of his things that basically comes up in most of his videos on evolution is his tree of life.
Oh, goodness.
That has been pointed out by basically everybody that's done a video on him. Yeah, this is horrifically wrong. And his response to that is basically, I know, I don't care.
Yeah.
He actually said that in our discussion. He literally, because he starts going on it, and I was like, I said something, or RJ said something, we're like, okay, this didn't like give rise to this. These are modern organisms. Like this is a trout. He did not give rise to reptiles. And he was just like, yeah, I know, but look, I'm just trying to explain this. And it's like, no.
And I will also say his arguments are extremely vacuous. So he makes up for that by doing the whole like, well, Hitler supported evolution. I've seen that video on his channel. At least I feel like at least like 20% of his content is the Nazis were evolutionists.
Among the purported and direct ancestors, by the way, of humanity that a bit of Orange has proposed includes goldfish, earthworms, squirrels, and chimpanzees, all as direct ancestors of humans.
Yep.
Which is I don't even know where to go with that.
He's an unironic why are there still monkeys guy. Like
he's an unironic why are there still earthworms guy.
No, you say that we haven't gotten to LSS yet. So keep that argument in mind.
I mean, to be fair, yeah, but that if he makes a similar argument that we can talk about there, but like, yeah, when it comes to just like bonkers misrepresentations of evolution, I don't think there's anyone worse besides our first three Grethor guys.
Are like X-Men, like literally mutations are X-Men or radioactive, like those sorts of effects. It's like there's no there in terms of biology understanding.
So Cisara Tejada just said that a bit of Orange admires raw mat. Let that sink in. That if that's true, that's ouch.
That's gonna earn him double Grethor.
that might get him some credit for sure.
But who said it last time? The big reason for one of my personal big Grethor reasons for Matt Powell was referring to Raw Matt as Dr. Raw Matt.
Oh yeah.
Like I feel like a bit of Orange is that level, and to me that's unapologetically Grethor level. That's all I got here.
Well, let's.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's
if you respect Raw Matt, you're in Grethor.
Yeah, that is pretty rough. But let's get to his engagement because I don't think it's very good. Like he went on Jackson's channel once.
Yeah.
He did a video back and forth with Professor Stick, but other than that, I haven't seen him go on even any other creationist channels. Now maybe I'm wrong because I don't spend all my time.
He joined Eric Hovind. He and Eric Hovind became buddies, and they started going around doing stuff together. But yeah, I think he just kind of dropped off the map after that. That was really it.
I also have to say it's only kind of engagement, but I miss Rent-A-Friend 2000, which is actually still his YouTube profile picture, which is what I use here. He sped up his voice and was a little high pitched, and it was kind of a fun thing, I'm Rent-A-Friend 2000, and this creepy bear is Mr. Evolution Bot or whatever, and he would have the weird bear say, read out a pro-evolution article, and then he would, in his high pitched, sped up voice, critique the thing that the bear said, and I thought that was kind of fun. But then recently, he's just become an angry man with a beard yelling at the camera, and that's way less fun.
If you see the room that he's in, where he has like an American flag behind him and stuff like that, you will understand why he's just angry bearded man yelling at the screen.
What is the Simpsons meme? Old man yells at cloud.
Yes, with Grandpa Simpson. Yeah, he's gone from being a fun cartoon to being Grandpa Simpson at his worst, and I'm like, come on, man, why would you do this?
Are these cringe points right here?
Well, basically, yeah. This is cringe. Although, okay, so we have the allegation that he admires Raw Matt. I haven't actually seen the evidence. It's a pretty serious allegation, but allegations by themselves, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Dang.
So
I can't get there.
So, when it comes to cringe, though, like, even when he is angry man yelling at his camera, I mean, he's not calling for violence. He's usually not, like, insulting some big demographic. He's mostly just saying that Christians need to be more serious about their religion, which, I mean, okay, I don't really care if you're going to make that point. That means nothing to me, whether or not Christians should be more or less serious about Christianity. But for $10 from Vandalia 1998, here's money for drinks after the stream. And if you all want to see more Jackson and Walker, you can check them out next week after Eric with Erica as we talk about tetrapods going back to the water. Okay, that's interesting. Because that has happened a whole lot of times. That's the other big thing that we forget about when we talk about the ultimate life forms. There's snake, crab, and fish. Everything will eventually evolve into a snake, a crab, or a fish.
Monkey.
No, monkey
Crab.
is not the ultimate. Crab
Monkey is ultimate.
Crab
Monkey
is
Crab is ultimate.
No.
Monkey is second ultimate.
Erica.
But
Face,
that
face,
How many
Civilization.
times? Look, okay, this is a different argument, so I can jump back in. How many times have monkeys evolved versus how many times have crabs evolved? I rest my
Define
case.
crab.
It's like
Define
Listen,
crab.
perfection isn't easy to achieve,
Look,
you guys. There's a lot of
hold
boxes
on.
to check off.
This if we're going with if you're gonna make an argument with me about crabs, actually technically there are different levels of crabness.
That's
because
true.
Coconut crabs are less crab-ish than
Way to go,
porcelain
Dan.
crabs are.
Never have this
Fair.
argument with Jackson. Never
All
do
right,
this with
I'm sorry.
Jackson.
How about this?
I've read like 5 different papers on carcinization, and they're all just it's
how many
wrong.
how many distinct lineages have become carcinized to the point that lay people would call them crabs?
That a 5-year-old or whatever the test
It's
is.
like
the
4 or
5-year-old
5.
test.
Okay.
It's either 4 or 5.
Excuse me.
Now-
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Jackson, you missed the obvious. Crabby. How could you not do that? Come on.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to throw out a recommendation for everyone to read the Stormlight Archive, where
Yep.
There you
it's
go.
all about crabs.
All right, now when
That's
it
the whole
comes
point of the book.
when it comes to snake, we've got those weird Triassic, like amphibian-ish guys whose names I
Oh,
can't
the
remember.
aestropods?
Yeah, aestropods. We've got
Yeah, the
actual
aestropods.
snakes. We've got
Sicilians,
Sicilians,
glass lizard.
glass lizard. There's several kinds of skinks that have all gone limbless independently. So we've got at least 4 or 5 different times that in different lineages have become snake. And
Yeah.
now think
I
about
can
times that things have
respect
become
noodle.
fish.
I can respect the noodleization
Yeah.
of
You
order.
mean like
I can
you mean
respect
like
that.
dolphins and ichthyosaurs? Is that what
Dolphins,
you're-
ichthyosaurs, but let's not forget some of the more derived Thalattosaukians.
Eels.
Okay.
Dachshunds are halfway.
Oh,
there.
you know what?
Not
Eels.
this one.
I would say eel counts
Eels
as
are
snack.
fish who became snakes.
Yeah.
Boom. There we go.
So yeah,
All Jackson. All snakes are fish that became snakes.
that's true.
That became eels. Boom. No.
So well, some of them did because sea snakes they are snakes that
Well,
became eels.
There are actually a bunch of different fish who became eel.
Okay, we're way off topic.
Like there are wolf eels who have their pectoral fins, so technically they're not eels. They're in the wolf fish group.
This is
Sorry,
your fault.
everybody. This is now an animal phylogenetics stream.
Let me tell you
Welcome
how
to the
many
show.
things look like gobies. No.
Okay, but in conclusion,
all right.
because it's only happened once, we have no evidence that monkey is the ultimate life form. We have abundant evidence that the ultimate life forms are fish, crab,
Beetles
and
only
snake.
happen once. There's more beetles than like any other clade. I rest my case.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right,
And the biomass of humans and all of our livestock, like, blows all wild animals together out of the.
okay.
That doesn't count
But
because brains.
Where are we gonna put a bit of orange
Okay,
in
as
our
an
ranking?
as an impartial observer
Right.
who has not interacted nor watched, literally, I have no idea who this person is. It sounds from the discussion like F or D is what it
F.
sounds like for me.
I say F.
My thing is, I find his content really grating, and he's a very annoying, like, condescending jerk in the comments section.
So we're going to F.
Also, is he as bad as Maddox? I'll give him a D.
Okay, I would actually go D2 because
Yeah.
I actually think that his cringe factor isn't that high, but Fs are
We-
vastly outweighing, so he's going F.
We have to discuss. I'm trying to decide who I want to bring up for my potential movement because I have over the past week I've had a couple of excellent candidates come up for moving down the list. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I'm looking
you know
forward
what?
to hearing that.
So Fernando Katakai comes up with a really good counter. What about crocodiles? Yeah, how many times have things evolved into crocodiles? Because that's a lot too.
I mean,
Phytosaurs,
how many times?
actual crocodiles. We've got, early cetaceans were basically male
but
crocodiles.
how many times did they evolve away from crocodiles?
Well, that's a good point too. Well, actually,
Right?
not ultimately that
You've
many.
got the
Yeah, not
you've
that
got
many.
a lot of instances of being crocodile and then radiating and not being crocodile anymore.
I mean,
So
you have
But
a
the
few.
thing is, crocodiles are the Eevee of tetrapods, right? Like they you've got the nice base form crocodile, and then you expose different pressures, and you get
Yeah, whatever.
Victorian
I like-
crocodile, or you get terrestrial
Yeah.
crocodile.
That's great. Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
All right, who's this next one?
So next up, we have the world's greatest cartoonist with no point to make. Long story short.
I think I'll open up argumentation on this.
That was actually really nice.
With his response to Jackson's video, where he completely fumbled radiometric dating. It was painful. Let's be clear here. He is an older Earther, but he was trying to basically obfuscate the dating of whale fossils.
Obfuscate?
Yes. I
That's
can't
the
think
one.
of that word.
Oh, with the Telms in Antarctica, yeah.
He
yeah.
completely messed up error bars. His were just completely
Yes.
inaccurate to what the actual paper said. And I looked at all the papers. I checked Jackson's book. Jackson was right.
You know, TD, I agree. That one was bad because for anyone who doesn't know, if you haven't seen those and you're in your blessed ignorance, he took the error bars for these dates for this whale fossil, the point of which isn't relevant, but he only took the farthest oldest. He only took by far the oldest dates for all of them.
Yep.
And
That's
it's like,
not how that works.
why? Why did you do that? And he really doesn't explain. He's just kind of like, he just did it. Well, actually, he didn't do that. Wells did that because he doesn't make original arguments. He just copies Wells and Behe from 10, 20 years ago.
Cool. So another thing about that, like a pet peeve that it sounds like long story short falls into a lot, is the idea of like, look at me, I can read papers, and then displaying over and over again that you can't actually comprehend the
Yes.
paper you're citing.
Yeah.
Or
don't
like LPP then.
Do what?
Yeah, a bit
Yeah.
like
LPP
LPP.
then.
Yeah.
Yes, precisely like LPP.
It's-
I actually heard a tirade on LPP stream the other day about how they were all talking about how. Side note, I'll be quick, anecdotal. They were all talking about how reading papers is so important and how they read papers too. And come on, like they're doing the legwork out here. And then someone in the comments was like, "Oh, I think it was actually Andrew Coming was like, okay, well, like how come all the conclusions are the exact polar opposite of everything you guys reach when you read these papers?" And in his image was like, well, it's the data that matters. You know, they're doing specific interpretations with the conclusions. And Andrew was like, all data requires interpretation. That is the nature of data.
Yeah.
So what support do you have that your interpretation is correct? And the answer is, there is none. Shock and horror, I know.
Yeah.
But
So I think a
Can
lot
I
of...
put one other thing about argumentation for this
Oh,
guy?
yeah, go for it. I mean, you're the one who's done the most interaction with him, so...
So his response. So we've had a number of back and forths, and he's been he makes terrible points in all of his videos. But in the last one we did, where I just kind of gave up, and sorry to Nestling and Evograd, but in the final video that he put out about whale evolution, this was a response to a video we did in which we looked at the characters, so the synapomorphies that whales share with artiodactyls, and we looked at the early evolution of whales. This took up like 12 to 14 minutes of our previous response video. He went, no, and skipped it
Oof.
for his next response video.
Yeah, no,
and I was
that's
like,
good.
I'm done. I quit. It's over.
So here's
So
one...
I will. Oh, go ahead.
So one quick thing I want to say about both long story short, as well as some of our other friends here, is that there's a difference between when you say reading, there's a difference between letting the words pass in front of your eye and then having your brain know how to pronounce that word, and actually understanding what's going on and being able to realize what the argument is and why it's being made and what interpretations can be derived from the data presented. Those are different things. I'm sure anyone on this list could look at a paper and read it out loud to you.
Can I comment on that for a second?
Yeah.
Because when I was in grad school, I made a point to try to make sure, like, it's really important to stay up on the literature, both of, like, I need to learn the background of what I'm studying, and I need to stay up on the new stuff that's coming in. So I made it a point to, when I was in grad school, to try to read between 1 and 3 new to me papers per week because to read a new paper that you have never read before and really understand it takes several hours for like a 10-page paper.
Generally
it
speaking,
takes time. You cannot read. I know our friend John Maddox has claimed to read, I don't know what the number is, 8, 10, whatever number of papers he claims to read, like every day or something. No, you can't read a paper like you read a novel, okay?
No.
You can't just read the page and move on. You have to, like, work through it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
And to be able to read a paper and comprehend it and make sense of the arguments and evaluate whether what the authors are saying makes sense in the broader context of their data and the other findings in that field, that takes, in some cases, that takes an afternoon. Hey, are you going to do another round of your experiment today? No, I'm going to see if this paper makes sense, right? And I'm going to sit down for 4 hours and figure it out, right? So like when we're talking about reading papers, that's what we should be thinking about in your mind. If you're talking about a 10-page paper, I'm not picking up a book and being like, oh, I'm just going to sit down and read 10 pages. Like, no problem. Like, no, a 10-page paper is work. And you need to sit down and put that time into it. And if you're not doing that, you're not reading the paper.
The number of times too, and I'm sure this is a familiar feeling to to everyone here on our panel, is that you'll be reading the methods within a paper, and you'll be like, okay, how did they do this? I don't understand what they're saying here, and that requires additional digging, so you can actually work out what it is they've done and figure out, okay, is it good? Does it square up? Because and Jackson does this a lot with ecology, with reading ecology papers. But you can have some really stellar results and find out that their observation time or their sample size was garbage, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's trash results. It doesn't matter. It doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Yes, the experimental evolution video I did, I was actually like going through the supplemental materials for that video.
Oh God!
I was just gonna say.
Yeah,
supplementals.
I took pictures of it. Like a lot of my pictures in that video are the supplemental materials because they're like, see supplemental materials for these results. I'm like, oh frick! And so I'm going there and I'm like going through the chart and stuff, and I'm like, okay. And then no, you're right. It takes hours. It takes
the supplementals.
To write
The supplementals will be spreadsheets. The supplementals will be the raw data. If you're doing it right, the supplementals are the raw data. When I published papers when I was in grad school, the supplementals were the raw data of the gene sequences I was looking at. And it was spreadsheets with hundreds of lines of stuff. Like the supplementals are just basically what you're supposed to provide are the data so that somebody could redo your analysis using the same data. So if you want to know, like, specifically what data set somebody used, you got to comb through those supplementals and see. And if you're not checking that stuff, you have no basis to evaluate the validity of what the authors are saying.
All right, but I want to get. So we're gonna have to take a. Sorry, Erica. We're gonna have to take a break pretty soon, and we're gonna have to get. I want to get. Long story short, done. We'll take a break. We'll finish off with Mr. Batman. Then we can do if there's anyone that people want to nominate to move, or I will say if there's someone that someone wants to like just add as like a a little honorary mention that we can then rank. We could do that too. But for engagement, Long Story Short is willing to do response videos, which is something, but I've never seen him do a debate or go on someone else's channel for a discussion. Oh, he has been on your channel, right, Jackson?
He went on. Yes, he went on once.
Okay.
I could never get him to come back on, but yes, he came on one time.
So I'm going to go ahead and say pretty low for engagement. Not bottom of the barrel, but fairly low. As far as cringe...
about middle.
I don't think he has a whole lot of cringe.
Mostly I agree with you. I have one counterexample, but by and large I agree with you. Most of his arguments are very like middle of the road. Okay, so his response to us saying find a chimera that actually exists, like find a Pegasus or something like that. His response was, and I quote, "The platypus."
Oh my god.
We spent like five or 7 minutes in our next video explaining that the platypus is not a chimera.
Oh my god.
A chimera. Let me just throw myself into traffic.
Okay.
He really did say that.
I'm going to go ahead and say that while that is pretty cringy, compared to who we have in C tier, it still ends up being roughly C. I think, long story short, is a good candidate for C tier.
I'd say B or C, yeah.
Dan?
I don't have much to go on, so I'm gonna courteously abstain and go based on what other people say.
Erica?
Yeah, I'm fine with what everyone else says too, because my only exposure to long story short comes from my observation of his interactions with Jackson.
Okay.
So I kind of defer to Jackson's rating for both Bit of Orange and Long Story Short. Jackson is the alpha male on this one.
TD?
I'm gonna. What was Jackson? Jackson, what's your opinion on this again?
I say prob C. So I'm giving.
I agree with that.
Okay, there we go.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
There you go. Look, long story short, you're definitely not the worst on this list. But
You're not the worst. Congratulations.
You got some work to do. All right, so
here's mind-numbing.
Here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna go to the intermission. I'm gonna get myself a fresh beverage, and everyone else can do whatever they need to do, and then we will be back in a couple minutes. For Batman, and then we will do our last little segment where I'm going to go through the panel. I'm going to go bottom to top this time, and everyone can either... you're going to have three options. You can just pass, that's fine. You can nominate someone to move and make an argument as to why they should be moved, and if two people agree, you're good, we're moving them. Or you can select a new name from YouTube Creationism that you would like to have us rank real quick. There you go. We won't have a picture for it, but we'll have the name, and maybe afterwards I can get a picture and publish this as a final image. So here comes the intermission, guys, and we will be back in just a few minutes. I want to take a moment to talk about something serious. There is a problem facing late surviving non-avian dinosaurs in modern America. Hunting is very strictly regulated, and only allowed at certain times of the year. This means that for much of the year we have to rely on farm-raised food, which means money. If you want to help a starving dinosaur, please consider donating on Patreon, or buying from my merch store. Links are in the description. Please help. Dinosaurs all over YouTube are depending on you to help them through the hunting off-season. Oh, Nani? Dare? Oh, Gojira desu ka? Hey, Gojira-san. Hey. All right, we are back from intermission. I'm just going to let you guys know, I looked over to my left, and I noticed I had an extra audience member who's not in chat, and it is a tiny little dog who has wrapped herself in a big old fleece blanket and is just sitting on the couch staring at me, and I was like, aww. So
I left dogs out of my room because I have 3 of them, and they're all bad dogs, so they didn't get to be in here.
Every once in a while, these two get a little noisy, but they're usually pretty well behaved, and their collars are off so they don't make jingly sounds all the time while I'm live.
That is good.
Yeah,
that's good.
But anyway, we are now on to our last and contender for least. The man who seems to think that a good argument in favor of the Flood of Noah is, why do you think it's bad to have sex with kids? Mr. Batman.
Yeah, Mr. Batman, oh boy. Mr. Batman, the thing is, every interaction that I've seen Mr. Batman actually be in, debate-wise, is just him managing to stay off topic for 2.5 hours.
Yep.
No,
and for
way too accurate.
For $2 from Vandalia 1998, we have, so who here is the Joker to Mr. Batman? I guess that would just be all of us.
You were all the Joker.
Yeah. So, now, Erica, the debate with you and Batman is still, like, it's on hold. It's not canceled, is it?
James said to me it's on hold indefinitely. It was supposed to happen tomorrow, but he's got family issues, and I can respect that.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that is
absolutely no shame in changing a debate for, life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens.
Look,
that's all I can say. But
we actually found out through his blog that there's a pretty serious stuff going on with Mr. Batman's family. And look, like I said at the beginning of the stream, that's really rough, and we're not here to make fun of that. However, he's done a whole bunch of crazy stuff independent of that before this happened, and we will make fun of that stuff.
Yeah, the situation he's going through sucks. But that does not change the fact that in his debate with Jim Majors, he turned a debate on Christianity and atheism to a conversation about Supi, which is abhorrent. And in my opinion, I was just grossed out by the entire conversation. And I don't know what, like, I got his point, but it was gratuitous, and I don't know why that was necessary. So.
Let's see.
Can we just skip everything and send him the Grepor?
No, we
as the last person.
We gotta
I feel like we gotta talk about him a bit.
So let's see. Let's go to argumentation, because his one, and as far as I can tell, only argument is you wouldn't have any morality if not God. Therefore, young Earth creationism.
No, he is. I think RJ. I think this is RJ's quote. He's a creepier Kent Hovind. All his arguments are just Kent Hovind-isms. Like, he does the whole, but it's still an X, right? Like, it's still a bacteria, it's still a fruit fly, it's still whatever. And I know for he's had Monophile explained to him, too. Classic Hovind, but...
Imagine managing to be creepier than Kent Hovind.
I mean...
That is amazing.
What was your debate with him about?
It was about our birds, dinosaurs, but we never actually talked about that because
Y'all
Mr.
talked
Batman,
about like the second law of thermodynamics the entire time.
We talked about the second law of thermodynamics. He couldn't define entropy. He couldn't give units for entropy. He couldn't even state the second law of thermodynamics in any way that actually made sense from a scientific standpoint. He talked about he couldn't define dinosaurs when asked repeatedly what a dinosaur is in the first place.
He didn't know what a ceratopsid was, RJ.
Oh yeah.
When asked. You said, what's a dinosaur? And he said they were created on day 6.
Right,
that was the answer.
That was one of the definitions he gave. Another definition he gave was they're extinct. And I said, okay, so are mammoths and dodos and, like stellar sea cows, are those all dinosaurs? One of them is. But, like, you can't just say extinct things. That's the definition of dinosaur. And also, one of his only actual arguments that he gave for birds not being dinosaurs were dinosaurs are extinct and birds aren't. It's like,
Yeah. Raise your hand if your favorite dinosaur is Anomalocaris, because that's mine.
Raise
I don't-
was it created on day 6?
I don't know what that is. Sorry.
You don't know what
I'm
Anomalocaris
sorry.
is, Dan? Dan, we have to...
It's a stem
What?
arthropod.
I've actually shown the
You
toy.
need to have a serious.
So
it's
you
like
have-
the meme. It's
I
like
still
the
no.
meme.
So we still need to do a thing where everyone teaches me about the biodiversity of their things, because if for people who are watching who don't
Yeah.
know, viruses. That's my thing.
And
We
If
need to
you
get...
have cells. If you have cells, I don't know.
Dan
I don't know
needs-
what you are.
Dan needs paleontology flashcards.
No, it's true.
Essentially the
It's
Grethor,
true.
Okay.
It's true.
Well, we can't send him
Okay,
to Grethor
so
yet. We have to... we
Can
have
I
to-
say for Mr. Batman?
Okay.
Can I say for Mr. Batman, I've watched 2 of his debates. One of them was with Dapper, and the other one, I forget, honestly, who the other person was. I don't remember.
Was it RJ?
It's probably Jim Majors. If it wasn't RJ, it was probably Jim Majors.
It was not RJ.
Was it the guy with the
Um,
mustache?
I would remember if it was. I don't remember who it
I-
was.
it-
I couldn't tell you. It was
I
was
watched
not
the
somebody
Jim
I'm familiar
Majors.
with.
It was rough.
So all I can tell you is that in both cases, it was a challenge getting Mr. Batman to comment on the topic of the debate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, sir, this is an Arby's.
Yep.
Basically. Yeah. All right.
No,
Well,
please.
let's go to engagement. And I actually think that Mr. Batman's engagement is pretty high. It's just not entirely YouTube centric. I've noticed that a lot of what he does is he will go into public discords and then put conversations he's having on the Discord onto his channel. And because that is making its way onto YouTube, and he is just engaging with essentially any passersby that happen to be willing to come on Discord, and of course he's willing to go on modern day debates, even though, as we've said, he has a good reason for indefinitely delaying his current schedule. But I mean, he is willing to go on. I actually think there's a fair chance that he will end up rescheduling with a firm date.
I'm sure he will.
So I actually think for engagement,
I bet.
he's actually pretty good. I think he's like an A or a B when it comes to engagement. Because yeah, he really is willing to put himself out there. So I'm going to give him high marks for engagement. So does anyone have any strong disagreements with my assessment there?
No, I'm cool with that.
All right. Now, when it comes to cringe factor, we've already touched on some of it, but his focus on using child abuse as one of his main argumentation tactics is one of the cringiest things here.
I'll play
Talking
devil's
about
advocate here.
dinosaurs.
I'll play devil's advocate, and what his thing is, it's a if not God, then how morality is the argument. The way he makes that argument is super creepy, but that's the argument he's making.
But the thing is, that we're now talking about how
That's
cringy is
agnostic.
he. That's really cringy.
Yeah.
That's a cringy way to make that argument. Yes.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's also like dinosaurs, whether or not they lived with humans or whether or not they're related to birds, is completely agnostic to that. You know?
Right. That is one of the things. Like, God could exist and birds be dinosaurs, or God could not exist and birds be dinosaurs. Like, there is not actually a difference there.
So can I submit a cringe? Can I submit a Mr. Batman cringe factor? Sorry, Dapper, I interrupted you.
Yeah, so go ahead, go submit whatever cringe thing you want, and I will then answer a quick question from TikTok after you do.
Yeah, who could forget Mr. Batman's sign off, which is, and this is paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact words he uses, but he's essentially like repent or burn in hell, and like that's
It's-
like the last thing he'll
it's
say, and then
repent
like
or-
modern day debate goes blank. It's
It's
like
repent or perish.
repent or perish. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like surreal memes. It really is.
Yeah.
It's something else. And I was moderating the Dapper debate with him, myself and Converse Contender, I think. And we were all kind of like, bye.
Oh, and by the way, this is for TikTok in the chat, and the guy that you see as KJV down there in Grethor, that is Faithful, Honest, and True. Yeah.
Man.
But yeah, so yeah, Batman.
It's like a little bit of like Ned Flanders going on there. Like, hey, neighboroonie, make
It's-
sure you
Yeah.
repent.
It's Ned Flanders, but like way less endearing because Ned Flanders is a genuinely nice guy. Like, when Bart is down, Ned Flanders makes him his super fancy hot chocolate with actual, like, piece of dark chocolate and a bunch of whip cream.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Homer, if you're not careful, your boy might be a paraplegia-reno.
That's the thing.
Have we all only watched the Simpsons movie? Like, and
No, I'm a huge Simpsons fan, massive.
Okay.
I got all
The golden age of the. This is telling everyone my age. The golden age of the Simpsons is when I was in middle school.
It's like both of the references that I heard were from the movie, and I was like, did no one watch the show?
Look,
you missed the. Then Jackson, you missed the nothing at all. Nothing at all.
So
what's the one band where his parents like are both beatnik hippies and they're like they don't discipline heavy, but then. And they're like, we've tried nothing, man, and we're all out of ideas.
my personal favorite Ned Flandersism was the something of, like, it was him and Homer, and it was something about hi diddly ho neighbor, and he was like, oh, curse your colorful wordplay and bless your humble home.
Yeah.
Such a great character. Great character.
My favorite Simpson scene is the steamed hams. I think steamed hams is unbeatable.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to get past that. Are you saying that the Northern Lights
Mr. Batman
at this latitude localized entirely in your kitchen? Yes. Can I see them?
Can I?
No.
Seymour, the house is on fire. No, Mother, that's just the Northern Lights.
All right, but back to Mr. Batman after reminiscing about the best of The Simpsons, which of course was basically seasons 2 through 8, and 8 is a little iffy.
I actually enjoy 9 a lot, so that's just
fair. Okay.
I think you can extend it through 9. I think that's fair.
All right. But for Mr. Batman, I am willing to entertain pretty much F or Grethor. The only reason I would put him up past Grethor is for the high engagement. Other than that, it's gonna have to be a Grethor for me.
Well,
I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a argument here for Grethor, which is that I would put Kent in F if I were feeling very, very generous. And as Mr. Batman is just a cringier Kent, he's in Grethor.
All right,
he's just there.
We have a $5 super chat from Carrie Bronson who says, "Finally catching one live. Can't wait to catch the recap later." Thank you very much, Carrie, and I hope you enjoy the recap. So TD's going Grethor. Let's go.
Can I make a case? Can I make a case for leniency here?
Absolutely.
Because as far, and again, fairly limited in terms of my experience with Mr. Batman. So your mileage may vary. People that have interacted with him more, but from what I've seen, I haven't seen not just is he not. At least, as far as I've seen, I don't recall him, like, egregiously interrupting or anything like that in his interactions with people. I also don't recall the not-so-veiled, some of them have, like, a subtle but not really, like, sexism thing going on, and I don't catch that from him, but, again, limited interactions. The arguments, there's one gear, right? There is, I'm going to make this argument, and like the topic of the debate be damned, this is the case I'm going to make, right? You can interpret that both ways, I think, of like, okay, one, you had one job, and it's the topic of debate, and you're not doing it. But also, if you're going to like actually focus an argument, making a specific argument as opposed to just scattershot of talking points, there is some merit to that. When I started this, I was going to make a case for D, but in talking about it, I've heard how weak the case I'm making sounds. So now I'm thinking low D or F. So I started with saying Dan, I'm going to ask for D, but now I'm like D or F.
I also have a counterpoint to one of your points, which is he actually did interrupt me a fair bit.
Also,
okay, fair enough.
Someone in the side chat, it was actually our friend Brian Stevens, says that Mr. Batman is evidently an aggressive anti-masker.
Well, no surprise there, yeah.
Shocking, I know.
Erica, I think you were there, where he showed off his Trump 2020 t-shirts before my debate that he was making and selling. and he was like, "Isn't that great?"
I
was just
remember
like,
that. Oh, I blocked that one out too.
Like,
Holy cow! Yep.
I just gonna say,
him and his wife were doing merch. That was
making your
amazing.
own merch for your favorite politician is, I just think, kind of cringy, just in general.
Kinda.
And then, yeah. So there was that. Oh, and for $4.99, Scott Duke says, maybe I missed it. Why isn't SFT on the list? When he does something significant, we'll put him on the list. There you go.
All three of y'all did the same hand thing, and I thought it was very funny.
I followed the lead of everyone else. I'm a lemming.
All right, so we had an impassioned plea to lift Batman out of Grethor. Like I said, I'm okay with F or Grethor, so I'm just.
I don't think he's. Look, the man has not, he doesn't promote quack cures for cancer. He doesn't openly argue for genocide.
All right, that's fair.
So
yeah,
but
you've got some good points there.
But also,
I vote
on
F
the
then.
spectrum between...
That is a low bar, Jesus.
I was just
Between
gonna
the
say that.
yeah.
That's still the bar.
It's a relative scale, y'all. It's a relative scale.
Yeah, but even
but
still,
on
I
the
didn't think we were
spectrum-
you got the shovel, and we're
Yeah.
getting down in the
On the spectrum between Maddox and raw Matt, I feel like he's way closer to raw Matt than Maddox.
Yeah, the
but
thing
that's
is
the thing.
that
So even though he might be the best of Grethor, sorry, I still don't know if I would say he deserves F.
So here's my thing. I'm with Dan on this.
I won't argue further.
Look at what we have. We have people who are openly advocating for genocide and selling, not just advocating for, selling useless quote-unquote medicines that will apparently cure things like chronic Lyme disease, which, by the way, doesn't exist, and cancer, which, by the way, does and will kill you if you decide to rely on Mr. Raw Matt.
Thank you, Dapper.
So
Thank you.
I just don't
But
think...
he's also an anti-vax, or not anti-vaxxer, anti-masker, so there is some health quackery there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was anti-vax.
But here's the thing. If I had... Let's say I have two options. One is I have to get COVID-19, or I have to have colon cancer and rely on Raw Matt's weird plant teas to cure me.
COVID.
I'm taking the COVID. I don't want COVID, but if it's that, or colon cancer with foul-tasting tea for treatment, I'm going to take my chances with the respiratory disease.
By the way, Dapper, is this a friend? This is, I don't care if it's friendly or not. Everybody, get your vaccinations. Get vaccinated.
vaccine.
I'm at 1/2 done with that particular task. Yay!
Nice.
Unless anyone, because people have come at me about this, lest anyone give me stuff for oh, well, I literally had someone last week ask me how much Pfizer paid me to tell people to get vaccinated.
I had that too in the YouTube comment section.
And
I paid by
lest
Moderna.
anybody doubt my commitment to this, lest anyone doubt my commitment to it, I was actually in the Pfizer trial. Okay, so I subjected myself to this before we knew if it worked. So
there you go.
Anti-vaxxers can.
I'm still waiting on my Al Gore check.
Yeah, I didn't get the stimulus
Evolution.
check, so I'm getting it from George Soros instead.
All right,
my Soros checks are always late. Blast
How are you
not getting your Soros checks?
I started
Well,
making
I
global
voted
warming
for
videos.
Hillary in 2016, Dan, so I'm automatically on Soros's payment list.
All right,
They must have missed me.
So Dan and I are going F. Erica, what are you going for?
I'm going F.
The thing is, I think he's F tier. I think that Mr. Batman, honestly, I know this is kind of lame. I don't think he's interesting enough to be Grethor. He doesn't have his classic telltale. He's just knockoff Kent, and we already put Kent in the Grethor / Shadow Realm in the professional tier list. So if he's just worse Kent, then I think F tier is fine.
All right, Walker.
I am hardline Grethor, but if I get outvoted, so be it.
All right, Jackson.
I've never interacted with him. I'll go with the room.
All right, well, that means that TD Lane, go for it. We'll see what
We
happens.
got 2 and 2.
My announcement is go get vaccinated because I'm Jewish and as such I have a space laser.
Well, there you go.
That
He
is
will
my
shoot you
announcement.
with the space laser. But what letter grade are we giving Mr. Batman here?
I guess despite the fact that I do think he should be Grethor because he's knockoff Kent.
All right, well
I don't think you have to be an outright horrible person. I will just go with F because everybody's going with that.
So you are going F. Okay.
Yeah,
That puts
the room
him
instead
in
F.
F. All right. Well, also
What's up?
for $5 from Kerry Bronson, he says you can't get colon cancer if you burn your colon to non-existence with plant sludge. Just saying. That's true. Yes. If you destroy your colon with weird toxic stuff that Raw Matt is trying to get you to take, that's true. You can't technically get colon cancer.
Excuse me. There's an even simpler way. Just buy chili juice.
Well, yeah, that'll also destroy your colon.
That also kind of goes for like the what was it? The Kent and Eric were like advocating people eat like peach seeds.
Apricot seeds.
Apricot seeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Call me when they
plants
start
don't want you to
advocating
do
that silver stuff.
Oh, cool.
Call me when they
We'll
start
see.
shilling that.
You know what?
Mercury?
You know what? I would say we should encourage them to eat like ginkgo seeds or something like that. But then someone will actually do it, and then we'll get in trouble.
Yeah,
so.
look. Here at Dapper Dino, we don't encourage that anyone eat any foods among the primary metabolites of which are hydrogen cyanide. That includes apricot seeds.
I'm
Don't
picturing
do that,
it
everybody.
Eric or Kent are going to come out with like the ancient box filled with mercury pills that are like that big, right? From the immortality seekers of I can't remember which dynasty was it, but of ancient times. And they're like $500 a pop, and they also slowly kill you because it's not a potential for immortality unless it slowly kills you. It doesn't count unless it's killing you simultaneously.
Go big or go home, right?
Look, have you ever done the immortality event chain in CK2? That's basically what happens. So
All right.
you die or you become immortal.
So guys, we don't have a whole lot of time, so what I'm going to do is quickly go from bottom to top like I promised. We're going to get... The three options are you can pass, you can nominate a YouTube creationist that we don't have on here, or to then rank, or you can argue that someone should be moved. And if you can get two people to agree, and we're not going to do counter arguments, we're just going to do agree or disagree, then we can move someone. So we're going to start with Erica. Erica, which of those three options would you like to take?
Wait, I really don't want to go first because I have two people I'm still trying to decide between.
All right, fine.
All right,
We'll jump
I'll
to
go.
Dan, and we'll come back to you when you're ready.
I'll go. I was initially going to pass, but I've talked myself into saying that Smokey for the being was it Smokey that was Holocaust denial curious?
Yep.
Or was it somebody else?
It was praise.
Right.
Oh, it was
That was
praise? I thought it
praise?
was smoking. Yeah, okay. It was praise.
Praise for the Holocaust denial curiosity, which is being generous, because I don't draw a line. I think if you're like, well, it was really 6 million, then like you're a denier, and like you know what you can do. As Stephen King put it, perform an impossible act. I think he should bump down to F for that reason.
Hmm.
I think that's worth a 1-tier penalty.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a seconded. Is there anyone else?
I got
who's
one
gonna-
vote.
I can agree on that.
All right. Well, here you go. Praise, you have been bumped down to F upon further consideration. Sorry, buddy.
People, it's historical facts, people. Come on.
It's a lonely world for Neff.
All right, Erica, let us know when you're ready. But if you're not, we're going to go on to Walker.
Okay, I'm hoping my hope is that if I let other people go first, someone will pick one of my people.
All right,
so
we'll
that
just-
I can. Then
I'll just let you go last. How about that? You
Okay, yeah, do that one. do that
in
one.
D&D terms, you're delaying your action.
Yeah, I'm delaying my action.
Okay, Walker, what do you got for us?
Problem is, I also had two people, so I don't know if one of my people overlaps with Erica's people.
Who are your two people, Walker? I'll tell you
Uh,
mine.
so I'm
Mine's Maddox and Emery at IHL.
Maddox?
Mine is
you
Maddox.
think about moving? I was gonna recommend someone new.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Those are my two moving.
All right.
Oh, okay, go for it.
So you know what? I'm just gonna say Kent Hovind for the sick burn since he doesn't do anything relevant except for YouTube.
That's true. He has now been
He
relegated.
is YouTube creationist, but I'm also just curious, like where he stands out of the YouTube creations.
Okay.
Because he was Shadow Realm for the professionals.
Yeah.
Right.
But I actually do think that... Okay, so when it comes to medical stuff, I actually do end up thinking he's going to be Grethor, because, I mean, he's telling people to basically eat hydrogen cyanide. It's not okay.
And he's a COVID truther.
No,
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
yes, he is.
And, of course, we all know
He's
his
a-
His
arguments
arguments are bad.
they might not be Matt Powell bad. Like, I don't think Kent Hovind thinks that the sun burns the oxygen in the air in the space. But...
But influence, he's a lot more influential, so all that bad stuff has a much
Yeah.
bigger megaphone when it's coming from Kent.
Also, his engagement has been way down lately.
It has been. Yeah, I can get by. Imagine being Grethor Shadow Realm in both the professional and
He ghosted me. He ghosted me.
I would also like to say, Kent is pretty cringe too. Have you watched any of his Whack and Atheist?
That is true.
It's not great.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Walker, you got me. Put Kent on there. I'm
Grethor,
in.
all right. So I'm not going to grab a picture of him now, but later on we can put remind me, guys, and I'll put a picture of Kent Hovind here in Grethor. And also, potentially, there might be a debate between Maddie Science Side Up, who is not with us tonight, but who was in the chat earlier, and Kent Hovind. That might be happening, but we've all told her that like the chances that it actually happens, like 30% max. So,
Coin flip.
Yeah. And for 20 secs from Command Cyborg, thank you. I always like it when I get some secs on the chat. Drink for the errors from the list and Godzilla. Yes, I will drink for both, especially Godzilla, because I watched Godzilla vs. Kong. And Erica, you have to go watch it so that we can trash talk each other.
I know. I'm waiting on some things. We'll see.
All right, fine. But it's very frustrating to me right now that I can't trash talk about Kong until you've seen it.
Dapper, you can talk to me about it. I saw it.
Yeah, but you don't have the strong pro-Kong bias that Erica does.
I have a huge pro-Kong bias. I'm a
right.
monkey
And I have a huge
animal.
pro-Godzilla bias. So, all right, we'll keep going.
All right, Jackson.
Yep, Jackson, what do you got?
I was trying to think. I think everyone on the list is fine in their positions. I don't really have any strong decisions. So I was thinking about other creationists, and I thought of like the very first person I ever debated on YouTube, which was this guy named Belligerent Christian. I don't think he does YouTube anymore. I haven't seen him since like 20. So that was what?
It's a great
early
name.
2017. Yeah, and he was Grethor level of argumentation. So
Okay.
he was actually very nice. So I don't know why he was called.
Erica, do you have it? Have you figured it out yet?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna make my move. I think we need to move in his image, aka Emery Moyna, down to C. And here's my reasoning. I caught a stream with him recently, and in addition to some more horribly hot cultural takes, where he basically thinks that Christian universities like Baylor, for instance, are too liberal for allowing trans people to be Christians and stuff like that, amongst other things. He also had some very telling takes on science, where he was basically like, yeah, I don't know much about geology, so if someone makes a geology claim, this is paraphrasing, he was essentially like, I suppose like I'll just either look into it or in some cases avoid it, not answer it, not look into it, because I've got too much going on. And my thinking on that was, if someone brings a very large preclusion to your potential worldview, I feel like you're obligated to at least look into it. I do. I try to. And then he also, Walker, you'll love this one. As a fellow human evolution fan, he got very worked up about Homo luzonensis, because he was like, they put it in Homo, but all of the papers were saying it's mostly ape. You'll read the paper and it'll be like 8 trait, 8 trait, 8 trait, 8 trait, and then they go, so we conclude it's an Homo. And I was like, okay, I know what you're talking about. I know the work that you're talking about. And very clearly, it was not a close read, but on Emery's part, because no, luzonensis is basal for Homo, but it's too derived to be an Australopithecine. Which is the whole point. Like, Why would you not read close into that?
Erica, your transitional form is too damn transitional to be a transitional. Just accept it.
That's always the case. That's always the case. And plus, like, I don't know how you could walk away from that paper and not, like, because Emery just earlier in that same stream was being like, look, it's the data that matters, not the conclusion. And I'm like, yes. And the data was very clear that this is a very like gradiented organism. Each individual aspect of it is in fact a mosaic. Like now it's more removed, of course, than some of our earlier hominins. But I was like, this is the classic. These are the people who are going to overturn evolutionary theory, and they're not reading close enough to make good criticisms. So just don't talk about it. Like stick to your zone, stay in your lane, if you will. And I liked Emery as a person. I think he's kind in some ways, and then he starts talking about cultural stuff, and I realized that there's some massive, colossal hatred going on there. And I'm like, wow, that's just.
Well, do we have Do we have a second for moving Emery from B to C?
Sure.
All right, there's a second, and TD Lane also is a third. So there we go. Emery, sorry, buddy, but you have been moved to C, and Otangelo slides up into B. And then TD, did you already go?
I have not.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to nominate everybody's favorite YouTube creation, Stapper Dino, for the list S tier. Sorry, did I say S tier? I meant Greffor.
Oh, well, I mean,
bad creationist.
I did once put out a video why humans are not mammals, which was pretty epic in my personal opinion. It was because basically my entire argument there was like, okay, you listen to creationists list off the reasons that they say that humans aren't apes, and I can do the exact same arguments as to why humans aren't mammals, because all the things they point out are ways that humans are unique among apes. And I can point out ways humans are unique among mammals. But it turns out that every mammal is unique among mammals, and if you just point out the ways they're unique, it doesn't take them out of the broader category, right? Mm-hmm. Chimpanzees are unique amongst apes. That doesn't make them not apes. So, yeah, I would say
elephants are not mammals because they have trunks, yeah.
Right, yeah, you don't see mammals walking around with trunks, do you? And then even if you point out, well, what about tapirs? Well, they're just not mammals either. Just problem solved. So, anyway, yeah, okay. For me, I'm kind of tempted to say that we should rank Venom Fang X, but I feel like not enough people here were around when Venom Fang X was around.
Sorry.
He gets either like F or Grethor.
So
he's F or Grethor for sure.
So yeah, he's F or Grethor.
My favorite thing about him, and I think I'm going to go F because I haven't heard him do anything like medical woo or genocide. So I'm going F on Venom Fang X, but my favorite thing about early YouTube creationism, and we're talking about like when YouTube was a new platform, was that he filed multiple false copyright claims against Thunderfoot, and he ended up being threatened with such a severe lawsuit, and the settlement that was offered was he could read an apology and retract all claims, and his teary-eyed, voice-shaking, frightened out of his mind apology video was one of the greatest things ever put on YouTube. It was amazing. Because you could tell that this guy was like, if I don't sell this, I might lose like everything. I might have to like sell my kidney to pay back what I'm gonna owe. Because
that's pretty funny right there.
Yeah. It was.
We've got some of our haters in the chat saying that we absolutely simply must do F tier.
Yeah.
Orgy is leading the charge.
Yeah, people are saying Nef to F, which I like the rhyme, and then people are also saying G-Man to D, man.
I disagree.
Which one?
I disagree with both.
Really?
Because G-Man is nicer than Nef usually. Mm-hmm. And while the argumentation is similar, G-Man also tends to actually engage a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the thing is, Nef
really
has an advantage over everybody else below him in that he isn't a total piece of crap. And he actually has arguments. They aren't good arguments, but at least it's not just one argument or painfully bad ones.
Can I also make a quick argument, though? Counterpoint? So, when we originally ranked G-Man and C, we were trying to avoid, like, the culture war stuff and, like, the non-creationist stuff. But I feel like we've sort of included that on a lot of the other people at this point.
Yeah.
So I feel like that should also kind of factor in our thing with G-Man.
All right, so how about this?
And he has some hot culture takes.
Let's take a vote, a real quick vote.
I was the G-Man defender in the beginning because I've had good interactions with G-Man, but if we are, and I did say this when we went over it the first time, if we're including cultural stuff, and I said this when we weren't including cultural stuff, I said he would be way lower if we're including it. So if we are including it, I don't think we have a choice but to move G-Man to D.
Right, so that's a second for, or that's two for there, and then we have Dan. I assume that was you also endorsing.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Sorry, G-Man. Now the next question is: do we move Nef to F? Now I do appreciate the rhyme, but I actually don't think so. I actually do think that he is better than those below him on this list. I mean, granted, he's mostly insufferable and he's a complete moron, but like he's not going on like ridiculous rants against even his fellow creationists. He's not nearly as creepy as Mr. Batman. He's not as creepy as Mr. Batman. No, he's creepy.
I want to endorse all of that except the complete moron because I don't know the guy. I don't know, but like, in my interactions with him, they're better than I think both the arguments and the interactions are better than with LPP, for example.
Dan, if you think he's not a complete moron, then I want you to explain 2 words: Australopithecus tibula.
And tibula. Okay, look. There's a. I'm trying to keep this focused on quality of arguments.
That's part of it. If you don't know the basic terminology of the field that you're engaging in, I don't know what to tell you.
Anyway, I think keep him in date.
For me, that's a big one, but I have to rail against the idea that Neffy is not as creepy as Mr. Batman, because, like, I would say that's true, but I would say they're in the same ballpark. I'd say they're hovering around one another.
Look, Neffy is definitely creepier than anyone else on D or above.
Yeah.
But I don't think...
I think we're drifting from arguments and engagement and cringe, though. I think we're, by the standards that we have articulated, I think he is better than anyone in the F tier.
I still have to...
Yeah.
All right, so, final thing. Do we have anyone who really wants to move Neffy to F? Right,
I've been won over for keeping Neffy in D by he is better than everyone in F tier. That is true. That is a true statement.
And like Dan has been repeatedly saying, especially to chat, let's be honest, guys. Come on, chat. This has to be a relative ranking. It cannot be, out of the humans that you were aware of, where would you rank these guys? Because we all know that you would have trouble getting any of them much higher than D. I get it. I actually still think Sal would end up coming up at a B or an A, honestly, but...
Yeah, Sal's a sweet dude.
I look, this is a ranking specifically of YouTube stuff, so we're not talking about Reddit, we're not talking about other engagement, right? And there are people on this list that would change, and we all know who we're talking about, but we're talking about YouTube engagement on a scale from Raw Matt to Sal.
Yep.
That's what we're talking about.
I simply must say, someone in the chat, who was it? Hold on. Okay, Creo says LPP is better than Neff. Abjectly false. Allow me to support.
Okay, here we go.
My reason for almost bringing LPP down to Grethor tier, because in the last stream that I saw him in, he brought up the. You guys are gonna love this. He brought up the idea that the pyramids built by the Egyptians were actually batteries.
Oh,
and
yes!
That this is technology.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that is.
And his reasoning when the guy he was chatting to, Rob, Sentinel Apologetics, was like, "Are you an Ancient Aliens guy?" And that was the first thing I thought too. I was like, "Is it possible? Could it be that we have the trifecta, the ID, the code argument, and the Ancient Aliens?" And he actually got it from a documentary he saw several years ago that claimed Nikola Tesla looked at the pyramids and was like, looks like it can take energy from the ionosphere.
No,
and then they went back and forth for a while.
Okay,
didn't he also use like the Tesla triangle as like, or like something to do with Tesla as like evidence, which I thought was funny.
He also, because he gets pissed at this stuff, the reason, I want to make this very clear, he provided a source that was basically like the pyramid as a shape is conducive to taking energy from the ionosphere and placing it into the substrate. It had nothing to do with ancient Egyptians literally using the pyramids as batteries, which is the jump he chose to make. So
yeah, that's rough.
That's impressive.
Although I'm going to say, when it comes to batteries, we also have Jungle Jargon, who did tell me that the way batteries work is that you fill them up with electrons from the wall outlet. And then as you use whatever the device is, the electrons flow out of the battery, and it is drained of electrons. So
because that's how electricity works.
We have a weird misunderstanding of how electricity works in this group, apparently. I don't know. I guess it just ties back to the fact that if young Earth creationism is true, it invalidates virtually all that we know of science. So why not?
Everything.
If you're going to believe the Earth is only 6,000 years old and that evolution doesn't occur, it's not that big of a leap to think that your phone is an electron bucket that just gets electrons poured into it. I mean,
electron bucket.
It's
I love it.
It's really not that much worse. So we're gonna start wrapping up. I'm gonna ask everyone, starting from TD and then going down, if they have anything that they want to plug, any upcoming events or stuff on their channels, anything like that. You should find everyone's channels linked in the description. I think. I'm hoping. If not, let me know. So TD, what do you got for us?
Shall I announce the next tier list?
I'll do that when we're done. Don't worry about it.
All right. I got nothing then.
Okay, Jackson.
My phone. I gotta plug my phone.
Gonna fill up your electron bucket.
Fill
Slaps me.
up that bucket.
Good announcement.
I have a channel. It's my name. Go check it out, folks.
Yes, Jackson does have a channel. It has at least a few good videos on it.
It does.
At least a few.
It does.
At least a few.
He also wrote a book.
That's a few too many. That's a.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I didn't forget about. That's not what I meant. I forgot to plug is what I meant. Yes. RJ Downer and I have a book. The Rocks Were There. Which, if you like creationism busting, we wrote the most comprehensive creationism refuting book that exists. And
Yeah,
there's a
that's-
second one that's going to be coming out. So
And that's
yeah.
not an exaggeration. It really is.
I
It
will.
is.
I am reading it right now, y'all, and I will tell you this thing is like it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's in there.
Yeah,
It's-
Walker is
and
correct.
it's
It is
like-
dummy thick.
we
Yeah.
at what other books on Youngest Creationism have covered, and we took that plus also went way deeper.
Yeah.
And we covered a
It's-
much larger field. We covered all sorts of like subfields, tying different things together. Yeah, it's a lot. If you like, I don't think anyone in book form has covered baraminology as comprehensively as we do in Chapter 5.
Yeah.
So
Heck
It
yeah.
is comprehensive and snarky. It really does hit that Goldilocks zone of serious, but also like not too serious because come on.
that's
Available
RJ.
now
RJ's
on
the snarky
Amazon.
one. Yeah.
So Walker, what do you got for us?
I also have a channel.
Mhm.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I have a
That's
channel.
Dan.
Just a Walking Fish.
I also have a channel. The channel is Creation Myths, and I swear I'm going to do more stuff at some point. But I've been really busy with. I go cyclically when there's a semester because I do things for real, and when that's going on, then I don't do videos for YouTube because for people who don't know, there's a global pandemic, so everyone is teaching remotely.
Wait, there
So
is.
I've been making a lot of YouTube content every week, but the problem is it's all for class and not for my YouTube channel. But at some point, I am going to be doing more YouTube stuff, and I have 3 creation myths lined up that are very specific that have come up lately. It's going to be
Nice.
about the specific nature of the Lenski Sit Plus thing, because creationists, like recently, I've talked to some like credentialed creationists that have gotten this thing wrong, and not to toot my own horn, but one of them was Michael Behe I talked to, and like just what the nature of the trait was genetically. Another one will be the HIV VPU thing, because people just get that wrong about whether it's a new trait or it's a recovered trait. It's not a recovered trait. It's a brand new thing. And then the third one, off the top of my head, what was the third one? I don't even remember, but I have them written down somewhere. And so I have these 3 queued up. I just need to like have time when I'm not churning out videos from class as fast as I can to
Yeah.
sit down and do this. So eventually I'm going to have them. I promise. I just don't know when. But
Right,
the
and-
channel is Creation Myths. It's all about bad science.
And before we get to Erica, real quick, I have a super chat from Ian Chen for $2.99 redues, and he says, Dr. Dan, Evolution Slam Dunk, you know what to do.
Yes, thank you, Ian. Yes, thank
Message
you.
received.
I do know what to do.
All right. Erica, what do you got for us?
Tomorrow I get a bite-sized bust on coral growth rates, which is going to be pretty
Nice.
fun. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to be doing some editing on that tonight to have it out by 4 tomorrow because I put it off like I always do. And then hopefully I've got covering some cool new papers on Friday. I've been saying I was going to do it for the past 2 Fridays, and I keep not doing it. But this time for real. And then every Monday I do epic gamer moves on my channel where we play
Yes.
Ancestry, the Humankind Odyssey, which is
I've been
Is there
enjoying that.
dank monkey memes? Sorry.
Are there dank monkey memes, was the question?
Constantly, yes.
Yes, the dankest of monkey memes. All right.
Erica, are you aware that RJ and I discussed corals extensively in the rocks were there?
Believe me, Jackson, I am aware. The rocks were there. I almost said something when you guys brought it up a minute ago, but yeah, the rocks were there is one of my sources for that, so
Nice.
it's gonna be fun.
All right. Well, I will close this up. Let's see. So, channel stuff. This Thursday will be the official release of the next Speculative Evolution update. So that will premiere Thursday. Friday, and this is brand new, apparently, I'm going to be on Modern Day Debate at 8 Eastern, which is 6 Pacific, debating Flat Earth, I guess? Not even sure who the opponent is. But yeah, I got a message from
Thompson.
It might be. I got a message from James, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing much else on Friday. Whatever. I'll just go subject myself to some torture for your benefit.
Yay.
Then Saturday, I know I was supposed to do the hopefully final Genesis Apologetics marathon stream this past Saturday. I was not feeling well. And rather than give you guys a bad show, I just decided to not do it. So that should be on this Saturday. But then Eric with Erica will be on this time slot next week. And then we are following up with my next idea for a tier list, which is going to be cryptids. So if you guys like fun animals that probably don't exist, but maybe, then come check that out. So, and yes, Bigfoot is definitely on the list, Erica.
Listen, you guys know how I feel about Bigfoot. I'm a hopeless romantic for Bigfoot, but I'm also Bigfoot agnostic. So,
well, what about Small Hand?
small hand.
All right, so
less popular cousin.
that is it for us. Unless anyone has anything they want to plug, they just now remembered. We're gonna go to the end credits, and we're gonna see you all hopefully on Thursday, or actually, you know what? No, tomorrow on Guts at Gibbons channel, and then back here for Thursday.
Woohoo!
There you go. All right. Later, everybody. I want to take a little time to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or more. Bob Knob, Bent Hovind, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, Patrick Dennis, and Res Instance. YouTube is a very volatile platform, what with fraudulent copyright claims, demonetization, and the ever-decreasing share of ad revenue on the platform. It is very hard to rely on YouTube. My members and patrons help keep this channel going, and without them, the channel wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join my Patreon, the link is in the description, and if you'd like to become a channel member, that link is below the video. It's the join button here on YouTube. Either way, you'll get access to early videos, an exclusive Discord server, and if you pledge enough, 3D assets you can use in your own projects.